Shall I start again?
Yeah, we'll start again.
With microphone on, we will start again. 10:07. That was 1 minute lost in time. Tuesday, September 20th. I'd like to call our meeting to order. Begin with if there's anybody has any disclosures of pecuniary interest, I'd like to do it now. In other words, if you have any conflict of interest with anything that's on our agenda. If not, we will move on to adoption of minutes. Minutes were sent out. I looked at them and felt that they were accurate. Are there anyone around the table that would like to identify any changes or any issues with the minutes? Okay, I would ask a motion, someone make a motion that the Advisory Committee on Tourism minutes of August 30th, 2022 be accepted as presented.
I'll make the motion.
We have Ken, motion. Second? Second, Dan? All in favor? Passed. There's no unfinished business, which brings us on to new business. And we have an events update from Lisa. Lisa, thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm filling in for our department head, Candace Grisbrook, today, and I'll just give you a little rundown of how our summer event season went. All in all, it was a very, very successful summer for us. Myself, Chelsea Riddell, and Heather Clement were new to the team this year after Angela left us, unfortunately, after 13 years with the town. So it was an implementation of a new events team, which was exciting and challenging at the same time. Very successful though. From April to September, we hosted over 50 events, including our weekly Jazz in the Park series, our beachfront music series that's now been rebranded to Somersets, and our weekly movie nights. All three of those events were really greatly attended by both visitors and locals alike, because people have come to expect them from the town. We hosted 5 large-scale concerts on our Beach One site, 3 major fireworks display with no major incidences. So no injuries, no traffic accidents, no civil unrest, anything like that from town, which was fantastic and not always the easiest thing to do when you're bringing in people from all different walks of life. So we're very, very proud of that. We also brought in quite a few of our successful returning third-party events, including our triathlon, the Wasaga Beach Cruisers event, the Ford F-150 Truck Rally, and the Wasaga Beach Blues Fest that happened just last weekend. Some new events that we brought in for the 2022 season included Driftwood Theater's Bard's Bus Tour series. They came in and they did a production of Henry V on Nancy Island, which was really, really well attended and really just a beautiful evening that we hope to bring back next year. Moving into 2023, we're going to end this season, the 2022 season, with an event survey that will be kicking off at the Hootenanny, which happens on October 8th. We hope to survey 500 members of the general population, and it's of our attendees, so it could be locals that live here in town, visitors, people who are just passing through. So we're hoping to get a better idea of what people are looking for, as well as what they've enjoyed from our events and what we can do better, all that sort of stuff. For the 2023 season, we are looking to bring in some bigger names, more recognizable musicians and performers to the Beachfront series. As well, we're also starting to plan for the use of the Twin Pet Arena for when it's done. Through that, we'll be able to bring in more brand name performers, charge for tickets, and really turn it over into a revenue-based system. We're also looking to bring in more culturally significant events aimed particularly at the Caribbean and the South Asian communities, as they've become a very, very large part of our tourism segmentation. And then we're also working on developing activities for specific groups, many different groups, but specifically children with autism or other developmental learning delays. If we can start to design events that are more sensitive and more specific to the kind of stimuli that causes them problems, we think that could be a huge thing for the community here. We'd also like to gear more events towards active seniors and young families here in the area. Another great benefit that we had in the 2022 season that we hope to continue in 2023 is the partnering with our fellow communities. So Springwater, Collingwood, Stayner, Meaford, which we did twice this summer with our Trail Tunes bike ride and the Great Lakes Waterfront Trail, which was another active bike ride. And just a really, really great way to bridge the communities together and put us all on the same page. So yeah, great first season. We're very, very excited about what's coming up for 2023, and we just want to thank the town for your support. I think that's it for me. Questions?
Not a question as much as with the partnerships, I think you should investigate Tourism Simcoe County, because that's probably where the Great Lakes Trail came in, but it was really well managed, and it was an excellent event.
Excellent.
Question. I made myself, I attended a lot of these things you're talking about, and yeah, I thought they were really well run. They were great events. On a couple, and particularly the one that comes to mind, was the cycling event. I felt as if it could have used more promotion. And of course, it's a difficult thing. I know what it costs to promote. I know what it costs to advertise.
Yeah.
How does advertising and promotion dovetail into all of these events? And how do you do it? Because I know with the cycling event, it was not as well attended as it could have been, and
You're
I
speaking
thought
about
it was a real
Trail Tunes?
miss on the part of the community for not showing up, because it was really good.
Thank you. Trail Tunes at the beginning of the season, you
Yes.
mean, right? Yeah. So we had quite a few after meetings with Stayner and Collingwood to discuss how we thought the event happened. Having entertainment planned for the duration of the whole day in all three spaces, we decided in future we're not going to do be in Wasaga for this time, because that band's playing. So that's definitely a weakness that we identified, and with having the programming for all three towns go all day, it made the schedule quite a little bit looser. As well, so that event was in May. I came on in April. We do have in-house marketing where we do all of our own design work and postering, but then when it comes to doing social media as well as radio or television, not television so much anymore, but radio, it's done outside of us, and that responsibility was actually taken over by Collingwood. So I think having a little bit more ownership of the marketing that we're doing, even in these partnership events, is something that could really help target the marketing towards people here in our area.
Is the objective of course, every event would have a different objective, but is your objective to reach out and pull in tourism visitors, or is it to serve the existing community?
I think our mandate is to serve the existing community.
Got it.
As you know, as being funded by the town of Wasaga Beach, our mandate is to serve our citizens. And if the tourism aspect, if people who are visiting the area can see an event that we're having and it's something that they'd like to attend as well, icing on the cake.
It makes the advertising and promotion a lot easier.
Exactly.
Because the moment you have to try and reach out to a greater market to pull in a target GTA, that becomes complicated.
Exactly. And I think we try and reach outside markets through our social media, but all of that is free. So we're not spending any dollars on it besides manpower. And the majority of people outside of the Wasaga area that do find out about our events do so through social media, and that's through hashtagging. So it's stuff that they're already subscribing to, and we just happen to dip into something that they're going to see anyways.
Great, that's, yeah, it's difficult, but I mean, I look at some of these events and, as a tourism committee. I look at these and think, whoa, is this ever a
Changed a lot of that because we didn't want people coming specifically for events. We had enough people coming who already own property here, and a lot of our residents had concerns, so we certainly stopped reaching far and wide to invite people. But there certainly is two categories of events, and you'll see that in the scale and the budget that the events department has.
And I think that was another challenge. Thank you for bringing that up. I think that was another challenge that we faced this year as well. People not being sure where we were in the COVID. Were events happening? Were they not? How much social distancing? All of that sort of stuff. So I think now that we're, one summer season out, hopefully next year we'll continue to gain momentum of people looking to attend these large scale events.
Have we considered the idea of, I'm sure you have, but co-sponsoring with Toronto Media? Example, fireworks display brought to you by Q107. And Q107 makes it their event up here, and they promote it as a Q107 event. We take advantage of their audience to bring exposure to the GTA. And then we would have another event, if it's a country event, then you would have a country radio station, again, outside market, not within our own market, but to draw in from a greater market share.
I do programming specifically, so I'm not in the marketing sphere, but I can definitely take that suggestion to them because I think that's a great idea.
It's an old one. It's been done from.
So, I wonder, a real strength for this advisory group might be as a reference to the events department. So I wonder if they, early in the new year, could come to this group and kind of have a roundtable discussion
I
or
would love to.
brainstorming of, here's the events that we're planning, how do you think we can make them bigger, who do you think are, I think there's experience at this table that could make our events and our promotions better if we funnel some of our knowledge, because there's probably a couple hundred years sitting here, that we could.
Two tops.
Well, okay. Anyway, so I think that might be a real purpose for this group.
That would be great. That would be great. I really think Candace and the rest of our department could really benefit from that. And we, you've all been so successful in your own fields. Anything that we can do to harness that knowledge from you, I'm sure would be very open to.
And that is what I'm speaking of, is what I did in my career. And you don't have to have money, you just have to have leverage to be able to go and I can assure you that there are Toronto media outlets that would love the opportunity to promote on this beach, because when you look at this beach, Toronto is on this beach.
We're on this beat. Yeah, absolutely.
So they want to be seen up here. And it's so anyways.
I will bring that to Candace for sure. And yes, we would love to get something on the books for early 23.
Yeah, as early as possible. I think as soon as we can, as soon as this group reconvenes, that would be a smart thing, because you can be sure that most media right now are making plans for next season. Yeah. And they're going to, we would have to fit into their plans.
Absolutely.
What would be nice about what we're doing is that there's not a lot of logistics required because we've got our own plan happening, and it's just all we're doing is we're saying you can come up here and you can take ownership of this, and in return you provide promotion.
Great. I think that's a fantastic avenue to be taken.
It's the only way that we can afford to reach out to the GTA is to have cooperative events.
And I think really just redefining what's possible and what each town is willing to do right now, since we're coming out of this, the COVID haze, is important to let the general population know, hey, we're open for business and we'd like you to come back and visit us, I think is a very obvious but a very much needed move.
If we want to invest in events, then we should be investing in promotion.
Absolutely.
And promotion doesn't have to cost money. It can be just resources and putting, the right.
It's great. Thank
the
you
right
so
idea in the right
much.
place. Question on the Twin Pad. Great venue idea. Oh. Nope, that's not doing it. I think the problem is that we have a speaker up here that has to be turned off. Okay, great. On the subject of the Twin Pad Arena, fantastic venue, particularly a venue that we can be using fringe and off-season. for concerts and things like that. When's our timeline for being able to start using that and planning things in there? So it's conceivable that we could have an event there for next fall, like right at this time next year. That's a good one.
Once again, not an engineer or construction worker. So,
No.
but rough, like we've already. Oh, pardon. Yeah, rough timeline, July 2023, and we've already started brainstorming for different, concerts, different sorts of events, Disney on Ice, Harlem Globetrotters, large-scale concerts, all the different entertainment options that we could use the space for and make revenue from.
Yeah. Kim Mitchell.
Yep,
Yeah, he'd be a good fit for this community.
absolutely.
Yep. Yep. I think I might have another one. You're working with developmental learning groups and things like that. Is that something that you would reach out to those communities wide scale and have them promote the event versus, you can't post it on your website and think that people are going to show up.
No.
You'd have to let that association in Toronto and different places know, and they'll promote them themselves.
Even just with the schools here, particularly, so we found quite a few children's performers who will tailor their performances to kids with auditory issues. So kids that don't like loud noises, kids that, strobe lights flashing, all that sort of stuff. There's quite a few performers that are really focusing on developing programming for those groups. Not that the groups are getting larger, but they're getting more visible. Parents groups, student-teacher groups, people who deal with children who deal with this sort of limitation in their life. They're looking for more programming for them. And I know that the autism community here in Wasaga is quite large. There's quite a few parent groups that you can access on social media as well as Facebook, all that sort of stuff. So we would advertise along those lines as well as reaching directly out to the student teachers in schools to let parents know that these programs and this entertainment option is available for them. Yeah.
That's a huge opportunity, and it expands out into different markets that
And I think it's
That's
just
new.
being very astute to who our community is. Young families, children with disabilities, children who, not even disabilities, children who just require a different form of programming than, the regular running around, yelling, screaming sort of programming that a typical child would use. And I think being aware and programming for those people really lets the community know that we're here, we're listening, and we're here to help you.
Could you work cooperatively with Ontario Parks for an event like that, where you'd say, for this particular event, we're going to designate Beach 4 as a quiet beach? No radios, quiet.
I would have to speak with Parks
Yeah.
about that, but they've been very, very open with all the programming we've done with them this summer, so I could definitely see that being a really good option. I like that as well.
Okay. I'll turn off my mic for a little bit. Any other further discussion on this?
Nothing else for me to add?
Then do I have to have a motion then to, that the advisory? Motion that the Advisory Committee on Tourism receive the verbal update report from Special Events Programmer dated September 20, 2022 for information. Do I have someone to make a motion on that? Carrie? Second? Sylvia? All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Lisa.
Great, thank you so much for your time.
Now, should we wait for you, give you enough time to get back up to your office so that we can, so that you can tune in? So-
They're quick before she gets there. Thank you so much, folks. So nice to meet all of you.
Love to hear more in the new year. This is a big part of what drives what goes on in this, for this committee and for tourism. So it's,
I'll take all of this to Candace and we'll get an advisory meeting on the books as soon as possible because we would love to take it out
And as long as we're not getting in the way, we'd love to partner with you as much as you would like.
So I'll let her know.
Okay,
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.
thanks. Oh, okay, next up is a beautification task force strategy, a discussion item. If you recall, at our last meeting, I tabled an initiative that we forward a recommendation to council to create a beautification task force or a committee to develop a beautification strategy for Wasaga Beach. We decided at our last meeting that we would push this subject forward to this meeting so that we could accommodate discussion and develop a framework for a formal motion to council. I've got some slides up there. I've duplicated them here so you don't have to see the back of my head. Next slide.
1 second, sorry, Chair, I'm having some tech difficulties.
We're having technical difficulties.
Oh, there we go.
So, to begin, why do we need a beautification strategy? When you can look at it, when you look at the picture, Wasaga Beach is a spectacle of nature and beauty. We're home to the world's longest freshwater beach that draws far and wide. We have the Nottawasaga River cutting through it that creates its own beauty and recreation. We're covered in natural forests and trail systems. So why do we need a beautification strategy? Next slide. Well, the fact is that Wasaga Beach is not always beautiful. And you can see up there, I said, oh, you took that thing, you took it out. I had a thing up there on purpose that said, insert photo. And it was, when I sent it to Caitlin, she thought it was a mistake. I had a thing on there that just said, insert photo. And I decided not to insert photos on that slide because I think that we can all use our imagination, because I was driving through Wasaga on the weekend thinking, well, how beautiful it is. But at times you look and you go, almost as if it was your own property. You look and you go, well, that's not as beautiful as it could be. The fact is that as caretakers, we haven't always done the very best job at maintaining or protecting that beauty that comes inherently natural for our community. Things fall into disrepair. There's logistical issues, sometimes trash. Occasionally, these things leave a negative mark on our community and to tourists that are coming up and seeing it. Everyone can search their own memory and find an area that we could probably do better. Next slide. So the reason why we need a beautification strategy, I'm kind of identifying 3 reasons. First one would be to protect the Wasaga Beach brand. Caitlin's going to speak about our new logo soon. The logo is not a brand. A brand is basically a promise to the consumer. We're no different than a brand that you would have for Coke, Apple, the Hilton, Disney, Canada's Wonderland. The Wasaga Beach brand is basically a promise to the consumer that defines who we are and what the visitor might expect when they come to visit us. If we are advertising ourselves as a beautiful tourist destination, we'd better deliver. We all know it in the simplest form as false advertising, but it amounts to disappointment if someone comes up here and says, oh, it's not as nice as I thought it would be. And as stakeholders, we are all responsible for maintaining and delivering on the Wasaga Beach brand promise. Much like a team would experience at a national chain or a national brand would look after their brand. You think about a McDonald's, for example. You've got a product team that is developing new product. You've got a technical services team that's maintaining consistency right across the entire world. And they've got maintenance. They've got people beautifying their stores to make sure that the experience is always consistent and meeting the expectation of the customer. That's kind of what we have to do in our protection of brand. Next slide. So, item number 2, we need a plan. And we need a plan detailing how our community will look and how we will keep it looking that way. In other words, a good plan should set the course of defining how our community should look and how we will keep that look and how we will maintain that look. A good plan will organize resources and budgets so that we can make sure that that Wasaga Beach look is maintained and that it's something that we're all proud of. Number 3, next page. So, why do we need a beautification strategy? To help create positive visitor experience. Last week, I brought something forward that was identifying just a general survey that went out on the best beach. It would be wonderful that if through our efforts of beautification, that we were absolutely top of mind when it came to where is the best beach, where is the most beautiful beach, which beach best defines Ontario, and it would be nice to be there. If we do a good job at beautifying our community, it encourages return visits, and what we also spoke about last week was positive consumer reviews. And ultimately, the whole idea is bringing in more tourist dollars and more tourists and tourist dollars into our community. So just recap, 3 reasons: protect the Wasaga Beach brand, our reputation, so that we have a plan to make this happen and to create a positive visitor experience to bring more visitors and more cash flow into our community. Next slide. So, my recommendation on how it can be done. This is all from our discussion last week. So, how do we get there? Well, recommendation is that we should create a beautification task force or committee comprised of key stakeholders that are responsible for the beautification of Wasaga Beach. Once we have that, we can develop a beautification strategy that everyone can get behind. Next slide. We develop a program or a plan that has all stakeholders, budgets, resources working together with one common goal, as opposed to Ontario Parks looking after their beautification stuff and our maintenance team looking after our beautification stuff and planning, thinking, okay, we'll put up these banners and things because that'll make it look beautiful. Come up with one specific goal and all tied around common timelines. It's also an opportunity to create a rally cry, something that creates pride in our community and a common desire to make things better. And what's great is that if we come up with that message, whatever it is, we can advertise that message so that everyone is working towards it, and that we all understand as a community what that common goal is for beautifying our community. Next slide. What I'm hoping to do is I'm going through this stuff as background, and then I'd like to open up for discussion, anything that you think that we can add or change. Our stakeholders, these are the people that I think initially, you might have some other ones, that are, I would call the stakeholders. First of all, council. Starts with council. You know, they're the heart of what our community is all about and represent the constituents and the community. Town, they're basically the hands. Management and planning, putting things in place to make sure that we have a plan in place to execute any kind of beautification strategy. Involves operations, maintenance, and possibly bylaw for when things are not up to standard and are not up to bylaw standards. And then we have enforcement. Local businesses. Every business has are huge stakeholders in making the community beautiful. And It can be something as simple as taking a broom to your, to your front patio, or just, putting up a canopy or an umbrella to make it look beach-like. It doesn't require much or necessarily a lot of dollars, but it certainly might require some elbow grease and a little bit of investment in your business. Parks Canada is a huge part of this. I think that visitors coming to our area do not necessarily see a separation between our beach and our community. They see it as one and the same. And unless we are working together, Parks Canada, or Parks Ontario Parks, and unless we're working together, then I think that we are doing the community a disservice and doing our visitors a disservice. Residents, from a simple standpoint, maintaining their homes to, particularly in key areas that we see as tourist areas, maintaining homes. But I think a good opportunity here is we've got to get volunteers working together, spearhead volunteers to get them working around the community, cleaning things up, painting things, doing what it takes to make to make our community shine. Next slide. Other recommendations. This might be a little bit redundant. These were just things I just started putting down, and I'm hoping that we can add to this as a committee. Committee members that are involved with this beautification program should represent each of these stakeholder groups. You should have people around the table that can take action. The committee develops a plan and a work-back schedule with short and long-term objectives. An example of a short-term objective would be have Wasaga Beach ready to receive visitors by May 1. So that could be the very first thing that you do. You sit around a table and they're saying, what are the things that need to be done, and what do we have to do to make sure that our city has banners up, streets swept, park looking good, picnic tables in place by May 1. Engage the community and volunteers to work and support the plan. Create a subcommittee to organize volunteers within that community. So in other words, you'd have, I could see you'd have one person sitting at the committee that is in charge of volunteers, and that person organizes a volunteer army that would go out and work as a team to do things at the park. The park may be short on staff, but as a community, we're not short on enthusiasm. So we can go out there with our army and with brooms and sweep and paint and organize things. Let's make our community nice. Have a hotline in an online location where the community can report that the community can report beautification issues. I see something that's not right here. I see something that's not right there. Caitlin identified that very often, if you look at it from a town perspective, you don't have enough eyes out there to be able to see all the things that need to be done. And it can be simply saying, it comes into our hotline, did you notice this? Or this is broken, or we've got a sign fallen down, and right away goes into the hotline. That gets forwarded to that particular department, and it gets fixed quickly, as opposed to having it sit there for days and people driving by saying, that looks bad. It's an easy thing for us to do. Or if the town can't get to it, it goes on to the volunteer group, and the army goes out and, like a bunch of ants, and fixes it. This is something I see that we have a committee that meets monthly to review the plan and the new beautification issues that have come forward. Develop a communication strategy that encourages participation of the community, volunteers, local businesses, and visiting tourists. The visiting tourists. I read once that if you have graffiti on the wall, someone comes in with a spray bomb and just paints, does their nasty artwork on a wall, the best thing that you can do is get there quickly and fix it. paint it over, because if you have one piece of graffiti there, it becomes, next thing you know, you've got more, and you've got more, and you've got more. So I think that if you have visitors coming up here and they see that we have a strategy in place, and you can see it with your eyes, that there's a strategy in place to make the community visible, more beautiful, visitors will pick up their garbage. Visitors will fall into line, and the whole thing will function much more effectively. My other thought on this is that we have a committee formed and schedule first meeting by February 1, 2023. Much later than that, it becomes very difficult to have a work back schedule in place for May 1st. I've occupied this red light for a long time, for a lot of the time, and I hope I haven't put you all to sleep. But it's, I guess what I'm looking for is what are the from what you've seen here, what are the opportunities? What are opportunities within this, and also opportunities, additional opportunities that we should consider in our formulation of a plan to present to council? I'll turn off my light for a moment.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think we should identify, you said right at the top of your presentation about branding, and you named some pretty big players like McDonald's, et cetera. We need to identify our competition in other beaches. An example would be Sabo Beach. We know the GTA is expanding westbound hugely. And I was just at a meeting just last week, and there seems to be a big draw from the western part of the city to go to a place like Sabo or Grand Bend as opposed to here. It's closer. You don't have to deal with the coming up 400, which is Sabo Beach.
Sabo Beach is closer to.
I think, I don't know in
Toronto?
terms of stress of the drive, actually, in terms of actual kilometers, but I can tell you, it's a ticket to have to not drive up the 400, which is, is gonna get gridlocked in Barrie at some point. And right for the branding, you said right at the top of the presentation, and I think we really need to define our competition. Where are people going, first off? Are we having a customer leak in terms of attracting tourists? I don't think we are. But at the end of the day, why do I decide when I'm leaving my home in Brampton, for example, whether I'm gonna go to Sabo, Wasaga, or out by Kingston? I'm lost in the name of the provincial park out there right now. Sorry?
San Zipicta? Oh,
Yes, there's Sandbanks, Coburg.
Right, so what's tipping that point of saying, well, I'm not going to Wasaga because I don't like the main end. I'm going to go to Sabo because they don't have that. I'm going to go to Sabo because I can park on the beach. Or I'm going to go to Sandbanks because there's nobody there. Where's that defined line? And I think we need to establish that at some point, because that's our customer base. And they're very different people too,
One thing that you are talking about, Gary, is something that is extremely important in us understanding our customer base. Absolutely. And it's something that when we talk about tracking research, that is something that we can talk about later on. I think we need to know where we stack up versus competition, where we are top of mind. It's not necessarily a beautification strategy. It is something that we need to know as a community, as a planner, as a marketer. Where do we sit? How are we perceived in the eyes of our potential market and our existing customers? That is, I think, another subject.
Okay.
It's another subject because if we take a look at beautification, if we don't make the place beautiful, if we don't tidy up the house, people aren't going to come back. And if they do come back, they're going to start going more to Sabo and to Coburg and to Sandhills, because Wasaga Beach just doesn't look nice anymore. It's I'm being harsh, That's a very harsh thing for me to say. There's people probably think, you can't say that Wasaga Beach isn't beautiful. It's naturally beautiful, but we can do a better job at looking after it. And, you could have the nicest house on the street, but if you don't look after it, it's the nicest house in disrepair. So I think what we're looking for in this particular strategy is to make sure we have a plan in place to keep our house in order. And then from there, what you're talking about, Gary, is an additional strategy of understanding our customer and the market, and how are we fitting in, and how are we perceived amongst our potential market. So it's kind of two different strategies, but I think both are, I feel both are equally as important. But this one here that we've got on the table right now is about beautification, about keeping our house in order.
Well, you brought up McDonald's right in front of you at the very part of your presentation, and that's a company that's completely evolved, and they've completely changed the structure of their stores. They brought in Kids Space a few years ago, that they've now closed. They've shrunk because less kids are going there because of the health issues. So I think it's a constantly evolving. And then, of course, there's the other thing called the clean bathroom effect, too. Like, if you walk into a clean bathroom and it's clean, you're going to leave it cleaned. And if you walk in and it's dirty, not so much, right?
If you walk in and see a dirty bathroom in a washroom, you won't be back to the restaurant.
Correct. Or you might not treat that facility with all that much respect anyway. You might not even wash your hands because it's so dirty. So, but at the end of the day, I think it's, yeah, we clean things up. Of course, we can always make it better, right? We can always give it a 10 more minute buff, always. But I think the plan should constantly be evolving because our demographics changing almost yearly. Our summers are getting so hotter that it's even harder to be outside in the middle of the day when it's 38 degrees out. And I think we constantly need to keep that ball rolling. I don't think it's one standard, clean it up and move on.
I agree. Again, I think it's a different strategy than this is specific to beautification. What you're talking about is having a better understanding of our customer, research to understand what it is that we need to do and where is it that we need to go, and how is the consumer changing. That's a totally different subject. It's on the agenda today, but this one here, it's all about beautification. It's about making sure that we are looking after our product, which is the beach, the community, and making sure that we have the resources. We have a plan in place. We have the resources. We have a team to make it happen. Because individually, I think Parks working individually does not have the resources. The town does not have enough. We don't have enough money when we have 100,000 people come up and visit over a weekend. We don't have all the resources to be able to do it. But if we work together, there's synergy, there's a plan, there's cooperation, pooling of budgets, bringing budgets together, things can happen. It's just smart management.
When it comes to beautification of the buildings and the businesses, I know that lots of towns, and our town in the past had sort of a facade improvement initiative. The problem with that is typically the only people that qualify for it are the people that don't actually need it, right? So maybe we could go to council and say, not just the businesses, but the small little cabins. You know, we could approach people that own a small little cabin that we think needs some love, and we can just leave them a letter saying, you know, we have this program available, and that we have a volunteer committee that says this is sort of what we'd like our beach to sort of resemble, and have some key characteristics like maybe some summer colors, a lot of flowers, some shutters, some flower boxes, paint. Simple things that the volunteers can all pitch in and help with, that costs minimal but gives you the greatest love look, and that we can go around and do this with businesses. And maybe what we can do is, you know, the owners and the businesses can pay for it, but it can go on their tax bill for low interest over a long period of time. And then you can get that maximum look for that year, and it can get paid off. And that even, you know, a little cottage, I think it's important that we keep a lot of these little cottages, especially around the main end. I know there's a lot of council in the past that wanted to get rid of these cottages and put in developments, but developments have no character. All these beach towns, I think, it's the little cottages that people love to look at, but they need a bit of love. And if we can go in there and do that, so that these cute little cottages, that's what I think represents a beach town.
Wendy, if you are on the, if you put your name to be on this beautification committee, you've just identified an action plan.
Right,
That is an action plan that this committee up here would be able to, you know, say, here's something that we can do.
right.
We recommend that you do this. I'll just finish this with you. We recommend that this is something that council can do. You could even develop a subcommittee of businesses
I
with
mean,
the
even with
idea
signs.
of saying, I want, you know, how can we as a community of businesses make our businesses look more attractive? And, you know, maybe it's going back to the Mennonite strategy of working together. Geez, I'd like to get my fences painted. Maybe people
Yeah.
get together and, you know, and help other businesses out.
Right.
You know, you have ideas. You're very specific on ideas. These are things that businesses appreciate amongst themselves.
Right.
They don't necessarily like committees, you know, that don't have any skin in the game to go and
Right.
say, you know, you need to make your business look better. Well, you don't know my business. You don't know what it's like to have to, you know,
Right.
to balance my budgets at the end of the
Right.
month.
Exactly, but I'll give you an even more specific example. I actually have been without a sign on Studs Lonigans for about 2 years. COVID has hit me hard financially.
Yeah.
I wanted to do some improvement, which I didn't get. I had to finance myself, which, you know, that's how it goes. But there was a facade program at the time, which I didn't qualify for because I was behind in my taxes. So, you know, that's how it goes.
It's because you can't,
That's right.
it's tough to
So
make
that's
ends meet.
who needs it the most, right? So, you know, if, say, I'm going to use this as an example, in Creemore, they have a sort of a sign maker that makes all of the town signs. They're all sort of old and cute, and so, you know, if, say, I had received a letter saying, okay, you know what, here's a program, a facade program, and a sign is on the list without specifically insulting me by saying, how come you haven't had a sign yet? You know, but here are some ideas. And as the property owner and the business owner, would you like to meet with our committee? And we've got some ideas. And I can come into a meeting as the business owner because part of the idea is that I don't know what I want for a sign. You know, I get some ideas, and the sign is such an important part of your business. And I like this idea, and then somebody else gives me an idea, and it's like, I don't know what to do. But imagine if I could come to a committee as a business owner and say, this is what I sort of want, and everybody puts some ideas together to help me, and that is sort of a theme that sort of matches the community. How cool
all
would
the
that be?
And all the signage would have a similar look, a similar feel.
Maybe, you know? It's kind
Back
of
to
a
Stowe,
fun.
Vermont. Stowe, Vermont does this. You go through and you'll see a lot of consistency in their
Right.
signage. Even McDonald's has fallen
Right,
into.
and then, you know, I sort of get some help from some smart business people, and we put together this great sign idea, and it takes a lot of stress off of me to come up with the idea all on my own. And then if at the time I couldn't afford it, it could go on my tax bill and it could get paid off for a certain amount of time. Maybe.
That's something that should go on to this as one of the recommendations but Caitlin she's been anxious to get her hand in there, so.
Right.
I'll
Thanks. No, I'm glad when you brought that up. We do have a facade improvement program in place now, so it's still available to business owners. So it'd be great if this beautification committee, if it were to be formed, if they could review it and like make suggestions on how to improve it, like how to move it forward. I think that'd be a great use of this committee.
And I think that what we can add in here is that when we said a volunteer subcommittee, I think there would be a local business subcommittee that would be a collection of, of businesses that would be working as a team to help beautify the local look. And provide, and to make recommendations on how the town can support local businesses that are,
And even you can move it on to some of the property owners of these cabins or, older properties. I love watching those shows, where, you kind of come in and remake something, and all you have to remake is the front of the person's property, but give people a chance to sort of do
Hometown.
that. Yeah, home improvement, sort of,
Hometown,
and you just say, are you willing to be a part of this program where we're gonna come in with volunteers and we're gonna paint your place, maybe put on, some flower boxes and flowers, and I think, to be a part of a volunteer system that goes in and does that, that'd be, that would give you so much kind of improvement on that for the smallest amount of money.
I love it. Sylvia?
Thank you. So I think there's some merit to the idea of a beautification strategy, because I think we all tend to drive by the construction fence that's fallen down, and then 3 months later, somebody actually says something. I'm like, oh yeah, I noticed that, but I wasn't able to stop and deal with it at the moment, and then you completely forget when you keep going. So I think there's some good ideas that have come out of the conversation that's happening.
And again, just on that point, you can sometimes drive by that construction sign over and over and over again. Eventually, you just accept it.
Yeah, yeah, it just
As
becomes the norm.
as opposed to, there's that construction sign or that construction fence, I'm gonna put that into the hotline. And then, at least that if you go to the hotline, it'll be put into a place where action will be taken.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely a bunch of things in here that you kind of go, yeah, that really could be considered, or could somehow work its way through the system. So I really like a lot of what's coming out of here. A couple of things that I wanted to say with the facade improvement program. It's a good start, but I think it should also tie into themed promotions. If you want your business community to get involved, we're having a hootenanny. If anybody's ever driven through Meaford from September to November, there's scarecrows everywhere.
I love this.
You need to have a theme, but it could be driven from probably economic development, tourism tied together somehow, and incentivize, is it matching dollars? Is it $100? Is it a percentage off decorations bought at a local business, working with a local farmer to get us corn stalks. Like, there's things I think the town could help consolidate, or a group of volunteers could. So that was the one. Absolutely love the makeover idea. And I think somehow a committee could come up with almost an audit form, and you would get 3 volunteers to walk through your business.
Which one was that? I'm sorry.
Wendy was just talking about the makeover.
Yep.
And I could see that as again, it could be volunteer driven, but a makeover audit. And just those fresh eyes, that mystery shopper going through your business, because they noticed the sign that fell down that you just never quite put up right again, or the grass that you didn't cut around the post, or things that as a business owner you just don't notice. You go in and out that door 500 times a day, and sometimes you just don't notice.
Or it becomes, you get used to it.
Yeah.
I always use the scenario of, it's like cabbage. When you first walk into a house that's cooking cabbage, it smells bad. But after you've been in the house for a while, you get used to it. So,
You're drooling for cabbage rolls.
right. Whereas, it's you don't want to get used to something that's in disrepair.
Yeah.
Fix it fast.
Yes.
Or have someone come in with fresh eyes.
Yeah. So what I wanted to say was, I absolutely think there's something in this. I know we're kind of feeding this off to Caitlin, but going forward, I think it does have merit, whether it's a subcommittee of this committee, whether it's a separate committee. I truly believe there's something here, and particularly my final comment is, if everybody has seen the streetscape plan for the new beachfront development, it's fabulous. It's really exciting, but we all know that with any big plan comes a construction season. or two. And I think we need to have a plan to beautify as much as we can around that construction to make it tourist-friendly while we're improving our offering.
So this would be
So-
someone else sitting on the committee, would be someone, you know, involved with the construction. Probably, if it's, is it Baycor? One of the, there should be a representative from that group that is sitting on this committee, so that the committee can say, how are you gonna make it look good? So that we don't insult people that have just spent money to come up and visit our community.
Maybe I think that'll flush out over time, but I think we need to identify it as an opportunity through this committee. So I do think that there's it's a great idea. So, thank you.
Okay.
I'm sure there's lots more.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to add to what we've said so far is that there's a business subcommittee that will look for opportunities to be able to serve the business community, and that the business community will work together amongst themselves with beautification. And then business promotional opportunities where, and I think that this would be something that where the businesses would have input from the town events, so that the town events are having something, call it a Caribbean Day. Lisa talked, it would be a Caribbean event. So if it's maybe Carnival. So what can you do to decorate your business in Carnival? And it can be really inexpensive, and we can source a lot of this stuff that we bring to the businesses. So that's number two. And then the one would be, the third thing that just came out of this discussion would be a makeover audit. And that can be something that can be, again, something within the business, to be able to help businesses versus businesses feeling as if they're being judged. Because that can be a tough one. Yeah. And the fourth thing was one of the stakeholders being construction, the new construction. How would you best describe that, Sylvia?
So I'm not sure that they're a stakeholder. I think this is a town issue.
Okay.
And we then direct those that need to deal with the town issue or the town opportunity.
So that would be just a specific part of the town beautification. Whoever is representing the town on the committee, one of their tasks should be, what are we going to do about the construction area? Yep.
I think one of the challenges with Wasaga Beaches is grown very quickly in a short amount of time, right? So a lot of people moved up here over the last 10 years, and all of a sudden it's come from a cottage country to somewhere where people are considering living full-time. We see a lot of younger families coming up, still a lot of retirees and whatnot. Now we have this mix of people that have stakes in new subdivision homes and whatnot, but we also have the old cottage properties sitting behind. We also have a lot of developers that have came in and bought property and are sitting on them, and unfortunately a lot of them are in the eye of the public. So I think one thing we may want to consider is maybe enforcing some of the bylaws and making sure that the standards are withheld. Stuff like, just when I came in here, a lot of the commercial accommodation properties have these bins, garbage bins sitting out front in plain eye view, right? And in Blue Mountain, for example, they have bylaws, and I don't know whether we would have these as well, but that they have to be enclosed so that the public can't see them, right? These
You're
are
talking about the standard blue
yeah,
bins?
it's just a 20-yard bin, right? Just a garbage bin, exactly, that they come in. And I know some people have done it, some don't, right?
Excuse me, I think there's a disconnect, at least I'm not seeing it. Are you talking about just the residential blue bins?
Yeah.
Or are you
bins,
talking about
Chris,
the green
probably-
bin?
They're big, right? Yeah, commercial.
Like the truck lifts, not the rolling.
The one that's the size of two of these big tables?
Yeah. Yeah, so basically what I'm thinking here is, and it's not just that, like I drive around and you drive down some of these streets, and a lot of the motels, the garbage cans are always full, right? I think the problem is we're taking a reactive approach where we should be taking a proactive approach, actually looking for the stuff. This hotline, I think, is a great idea because it'll kind of turn that thinking the other way, right? So we'll be taking a proactive approach because we don't want to be getting the phone calls all the time from the public, right? So I think if we could enforce some of the standards also with, you know, people, whether or not it's a cottage property or somebody lives there, the minimum standards should be withheld, right? If you do own a cottage property and it starts to get overgrown, somebody owns that property, somebody's responsible for taking care of it, right? If you live in your property and you're not taking care of your property and it's garbage, we should also enforce that because again, when you drive down Mosley Street, there are a lot of properties right in the eye of the visitor that are I mean, they're a problem, right? Because as soon as they leave, these are the things they remember. Well, I went to Wasaga Beach and unfortunately, you know, I had a negative experience because of the way the property and some of the town looked, right? People don't always see the good; they see a lot of the bad, right? So I think it's key that we stay on top of that. So I don't know whether we could work somebody from bylaw into your plan there, Chris.
I have it on the plan. It was slide number. it's one of my slides in there, and it said bylaws. In fact, they're having them as part of the. If you go up to the, I think even under stakeholders, I think it's there.
Actually, just one more point. I know back to the developer thing.
Yeah, bylaw enforcement being part of the committee, because I think that they need to be sitting at the table, because because people may come up with ideas, and they say we should stop people from doing that, and bylaw might say, don't think so. We have to make some changes. Yeah, have to make some changes, and so therefore, you have all the people at the table that can because it has to be enforceable. Certain things.
If I could just finish my thought here, Chris.
I'm sorry.
No. Last thing is just back to the item with developers. Sylvia, I know the property you're thinking about with the fence that was down for 6 months, right? I think the developers are responsible for their property as well, right? So one thing we should consider, and again, is just requiring that they maintain their properties. Like they're sitting waiting for opportunity for years and years and years, right? They leave their property. They don't really care what happens in the meantime. But maybe we should put forth some suggestion that they take care of it. Maybe sod and at the very least seed their property. I know in Brampton, I believe that's something they do. I heard from a source that they require that the developer create not a park-like setting, but at least something that's not an eyesore, right? And maybe that's something that we could do with a property like that. That's basically right as you enter the area. At the very least, make sure they have the money. They invested in the property. Let's make sure they care for it, right? It doesn't have to be a lot of money to a little bit up front, a couple, throughout the years, but I think it is key that these key parcels are properly kept.
And Dan, that could actually roll out into a service that the town of Wasaga Beach could actually charge for. Yeah, we'll come and see that for you, no problem. Just to finish up, work with that, Dan, like, this is great, what you said is like 100%. The construction that could very well take place at the main end could go on for years. It might not be a quick 2 summers in, 2 summers out. There could be an economy
phased.
fall. It could be, there could be a situation that could arise saying, oh, we have to close down Beach 1 because there's an environmental hazard there because we found, so whatever we found from the 50s. We're hoping that never that would happen. But at the end of the day, that's going to deter a customer from coming back to the beach. I'm not going up there. It's too much construction. I'm going to go to Sabo instead, right? And that could go on for quite some time. It's not going to be 2 years.
At which point you have a committee that would identify a need for public relations if something like that happens too. And it's a working committee versus, these are people that are around the table that can take action. Agata, I think that you had your hand up one point, but maybe it's already been covered. I'm not sure.
No, thank you, Chris. Just one thing to follow up on Wendy and Sylvia's thing to make it even more specific, because you brought up a show that kind of looks after the facades I think you named the show as Small
Hometown.
Hometown. I've never seen it, but what, we could apply for the show to come.
Yeah,
to
they're in
Saga.
Louisiana. They only do stuff around the south, but there are people out of, we could, I'm sure that whether it be City Line or something like that, there are opportunities with an HGTV Canada or City TV. There's a lot of things that can be done. It's not outside the possibility. Yeah, that's, in fact, I think that was done once. Sylvia would remember, there was, I don't remember her name. If my wife was here, she'd tell you in a flash. There's someone who does work with City TV, and I think she's with Benjamin Moore. She's a Benjamin Moore sponsor, and she did some of the color work on down on yeah, like she painted sidewalks and did, you know, and some of the, you know, the colorful buildings and stuff like that. She came up with a plan with that. And so I'm paraphrasing, and I may be way off, but I believe that was done as part of a television promotion project. So, yes, I think those things can happen.
Another item, I don't think it's related to the beautification committee, it's just more, you know, there's quite a few things that differentiate us from places like Sauble Beach, so it was kind of, Gary got me thinking, you know, like, Wasaga's public transit accessible from, you know, via GO Train, via the bus from Barrie. It makes it very much different from other places, and I don't think we're really tapping into it. GO Transit has this, like, places to go page, right? But not really.
Can I add to that idea? It's a great idea. A lot of ski communities they know that their market is, you know, could be in our case, the GTA. You could have a beach bus, and a beach bus that delivers people up here you know, from the GTA and drops them off and takes them back down again. Moving people from Toronto is an interesting idea, and also if you bring in a beach bus, it alleviates some of the parking problems too. You know, you're bringing up 50 people on a bus for the day, and you decorate, you paint the bus with Wasaga Beach colors. Same thing. Yeah, so you do but we have a beach bus. So.
One more suggestion we could take to council would be to put some funding toward just general street decor. Like in some of our competitors, Collingwood specifically, like Insane, or even, they have a lot of these things that hang off the light posts and whatnot, which I think look pretty neat. And also maybe even some budget towards some Christmas decorations or Christmas lights along some of the main street. Like we do the skating rink very well. I can't remember what it's called there. The outdoor skating rink looks very nice. But maybe some other parts of the town we should spend a bit more money on some of this stuff that kind of makes it a bit more appealing, not only for the local population, but also for anybody that happens to be driving through as tourists, right?
Our beautification program would map out areas of target. You know, that these are the areas that, you know, are considered to be highly visible, and we need to put greater focus on. There should be more banners, there should be more decorations, there should be more gardening. We've got some of the most beautiful gardens that you'll find anywhere, you know, all part of the town, and they're spectacular. Anyways, Caitlin, are we in a position right now where we have enough substance to be able to provide a report or a recommendation to council?
Through you, Chair, yes, I believe so. Like, I'll have to take back everyone's ideas and then make like a proposed terms of reference for the committee. And then we're also work with clerks to see like what dynamic would work best for this type of committee. So I'd like to bring that back to this committee for approval prior to bringing it to council.
Okay, so it would require one more meeting, and you would go through we would go through that term of reference, and then it can be submitted. Okay, all right. So, looks like we will be having another meeting before the election, and this, we'll put this as an agenda item to review the formal term of reference and recommendation to council, and so that it can be, so that we can call our work done on this particular subject complete. Okay? I believe this does not require any motion or anything at this point because it was a discussion issue.
That's
So,
correct.
okay. And before I close off discussion on this, is there anything else that anyone wants to add specific to the beautification? Very good. Thank you, everybody. 5.3, website review.
Perfect, so that's my item. So, working with our student this past summer, we've been doing a lot of work on the tourism website. So we developed quite a bit of content on it. So it now includes a lot more updated imagery, like updated content. We used imagery from our most recent RTO7 photo shoot as well. So there's some really beautiful images on there now. And the website's an ongoing project, so we're still working on it, updating it. But I would really appreciate it if this committee could review the website prior to perhaps the next meeting, and offer any feedback or suggestions that you have on it. So I'll take those suggestions as we further improve the website. The current website's very, very difficult to work with. It's really not user-friendly, the back end of it. It requires a lot of coding, which is very time-consuming when you're not a coder. So I'd like to hear your feedback on it. And so the website is WasegaBeachTourism.com, but I will send that out in an email after this meeting as well.
Caitlin, this is not the town website, this is a specific website for Wasaga Beach Tourism.
Yeah, that's correct. So it's the town website
And is there a
for the tourism platform.
Okay.
I can show it here quick. That's helpful.
Agata, isn't that your background? Yes? Somewhat, yeah, I was gonna say, and would you like us to email these recommendations in advance of the meeting, just so you have some, or would you like it all to be at this
Actually,
table?
yeah, that would be great if you could email me the recommendations and then I can compile it, and then the changes that I make on the website, I can show that to the group at that next meeting, or we can discuss it further.
That would be really good if we that way. I think it would probably be, you'd get more fruitful recommendations through that if we can come to it in advance.
Yeah, I can take on a review and send this group like sort of a skeleton of a review, and you can add whatever you guys, if you have time to add more stuff in, be happy to do that.
You would forward
I would,
you would do an initial review, forward it to Caitlin, and Caitlin could send it out?
no, I would do an initial review, send it to everybody on the committee so that you can add your thoughts, suggestions, but sort of hopefully the category would already exist for them, right?
Yeah, that's,
And I would technically probably do it as a Google Doc so that sort of the version changes can be monitored.
yeah, that would
Yeah,
be great.
yeah,
I
and
can
then
help
you-
you set that up. That's a great idea.
Thank you for that.
So this is the website that I have up here. So it's a little glitchy when it's up there, but But yeah, if you can take a look through it, go through the pages, let me know how things feel as you explore. I'd really love to hear the feedback. Yep. Yep, WasakeBeachTourism.com.
Caitlin, my first question on that would be though, if I punch in Wasaga Beach on any search engine, how quickly what's your search engine optimization like? How quickly does it come up to the
So I
top?
believe it's the second, it's the one underneath the town of Wasaga Beach. And so it's underneath that one because we created the town website more recently.
I guess that covers that particular subject, and we will bring it forward for discussion at our next meeting with everybody's support in advance. And thanks again for looking after spearheading that. Municipal and tourism brand report.
Perfect, okay.
Take it away.
I'll take it away. So at the last ACT committee, one of our action items was for me to curate a report for this committee so that I could explain the town's 2 branding platforms and how we use it. So we'll start with the tourism branding because that's the one that this committee will be utilizing. So in 2019, council approved the branding and guidelines for the tourism image. The tourism branding guidelines are attached to the report as Appendix A, so I didn't print it out just because it's so big, but you can review that on the digital agenda. So that's the branding that this committee assisted with and developed, and we have it implemented in various areas in our community. So the tourism logo is used for all tourism marketing initiatives, advertising, and messaging. This brand is exclusively used within the events division and the economic development division. So ACTEV uses the branding for all tourism communication and advertising, whereas events uses the tourism branding for all events that have a tourism focus. And so they use that branding when creating like content for their events. And then when they have events that have more of a community focus, that's when they use the municipal branding. So they'll be using the tourism one heavily for like summer events, and then say like the winter events they'll use the community focus depending on the event. So platforms using the tourism branding is the tourism website, the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and then the events division's Facebook and Instagram. So then there is the new municipal branding. So the new town branding was launched through a news release at the beginning of this month. The branding project started in late 2021 and it was approved by council in July. So the town then uses the municipal branding for all initiatives, advertising, and messaging, except for those that are relating to tourism. So we are now just completing the final steps of the launch, which are occurring throughout the month of September. So the branding has now been introduced on the town website, social media, all our internal documents. We unveiled a billboard at Beach One, and new banners are going up throughout this week. So if you drove on River Road West in Moseley today, you would have saw the first phase of those banners going up. And all of the banners will be switched out by Thursday. So throughout the next 3 years, the branding will be phased in across the municipality, and it's going to completely switch over. And the goals of this new branding is help communicate a clear, unified vision for the future, an effort to build citizen pride, investment attraction, and business expansion retention. So with this new branding, the town can now better communicate and market the community as a whole. So the benefits of having these two branding platforms, is that the tourism brand has a full focus on the town's tourism identity and attributes, which strengthens our identity within the tourism industry. And then the municipal branding focuses on the community as a whole in an effort to build community pride and investment attraction, and it looks to communicate Wasaga Beach as a whole. So I will take any questions on that.
So I just have a true Caitlin question. So the banners will now have the new corporate logo. I know seasonally we have different banners. Thinking of Remembrance Day, we have the veterans. So will those banners be updated by the town to incorporate the new logo?
Yeah, that's correct. So we're looking to ask for a larger banner budget going into next year so that we can update all of those banners. And I provided an image in my report of those new banners. And so the ones that will be replaced seasonally are the colorful ones. So we'll keep the logo and the Canada flag up, and then the other ones in the middle would switch out.
Does the blue logo exist anymore? Is that gone?
No, so it is being retired.
Okay.
Yeah, and we will be switching over our new logo with that one throughout
Okay,
for the
great.
next 3 years.
Okay. And I'm not going to dive too deeply into this because, you know, I've got my own personal opinion on some of this. But my personal opinion comes from a place of a person that managed a national brand for my entire career. I don't know whether the town has the budget or the resources to manage two logos. I get confused already when you tell me that you're going to be putting up a large poster or a poster at Beach One with the new logo on it. Right, whereas I see that as being, that's tourism. That's putting banners up around the town, hanging from posts. This is what Dan was talking about. To me, that's tourism. I would recommend as one voice, not as a committee, as one voice, that we should be managing one logo. I don't understand why we have two. It becomes confusing to the public because if you are, I'll give you an example, specifically to consumers. If you were advertising to Quebec, to GTA, with the tourism logo, which is the Spark, and then they arrive in town, that logo should be consistent. It's part of our branding. There's no other national brand on earth that would have two logos, because you should have all of your focus on one logo. I know that 2 years ago when we were discussing it around this table, I had made a recommendation that we adopt one logo, and then it should be on our trucks, it should be on our banners, it should be on our signs, it should be on our website. I think that the opportunity is now to gravitate towards one logo, and that's my opinion. I don't think it's something that would be tabled as a committee. I think it's confusing to a tourism traffic that's coming up here and is going to see a different logo. Caitlin, I'm not sure how that goes. Am I talking to myself, or is this?
No, so a lot of communities do have separate branding for.
I'm sorry, a lot of communities?
Yeah, I said a lot of communities, like other communities, have separate branding for their tourism image, versus their community image. So.
What's the value of having two logos
So-
versus one logo where everything is directed towards one image? And that is what we all get behind. If we are using that, it sounds like the only place that we're going to be using the Spark logo is on advertising, which we do very little of. And it's going to be we're using the new logo on our banners. I'm thinking that from a continuity standpoint on driving tourism, having one logo has a greater value than to try and juggle or manage or justify two logos. I'm wearing my hat from being responsible for our national brand. And I would not, I wouldn't want to exercise. We don't have enough money to promote one brand, let alone two.
If I could, the only brand that we would be promoting is tourism to other people. The corporate brand is used for Wasaga Beach, so pride in local community, pride in town hall, communications from town hall, so it gives it that corporate look. Because the tourism brand was developed first, and we've been using it for 2 years, and I think there was a lot of good thought that went into the tourism brand. I don't think anyone wanted to give it up. But we worked with world-class advertising agencies to develop it. They developed it to work hand in hand. So I think at this point, the discussion's a moot point for this advisory committee. You can certainly, like you've shared your concerns with Caitlin, who can take them moving forward, but I don't think we need to spend a lot of time with it.
I don't think that we have enough, I don't believe that we have very much equity built in that Spark logo. Not many people know it. It's just another logo. And I think that if any work you do at developing a logo, putting it out on the street as we are doing, I think that it's better as a community, as a community to get behind one logo. Caitlin, if that's one of those things that maybe you want me to speak just as a person to somebody about that, but I just think that for us to get behind two logos, it doesn't, it's not good marketing sense. But that's just, I'm going to stand back on that one. And I think it's beyond the scope of what this committee is all about, except for it's confusing from a tourism standpoint.
Yeah, so if I can just add, we are working to separate them and limit that confusion. So if you find like our communication starts getting confusing, please bring that to me. But we are trying to separate the two. And then, yeah, and I just want to add that also while working with our branding consultants, we introduced the tourism brand and had this discussion with them on how to move forward with the tourism brand or what we should do, like what steps to make. And our branding consultants recommended that we keep this tourism brand for just those uses. And then we develop our corporate brand, the one that represents the community as a full, because when we developed the tourism brand, it had only, it focused just on tourism.
I'm proposing that it is confusing right now. If the moment that you are using two brands and then you arrive on the town, here I am in Wasaga Beach, and you've got different logos all over the place, am I in the right spot?
We've gone from having probably 10 different logos, toned it down to 2. At the end of the day, we're government services. We're a municipality, not a corporate brand that's building equity in Coca-Cola. So if you look at the two logos, the words Wasaga Beach jump out, and I think in both logos. And most people's association with, the beach or people who've been here, it is Wasaga Beach or Wasaga that jumps out. So it's certainly good comments. I think Caitlin can take them under advise, and you guys should probably follow up offline, because I think it's, you come from a different background, different perspective, but I don't know that it has a lot to do with tourism advisory at this point, because we've been given that logo to work with. So I don't think it's up to us to, tell Caitlin we don't think we should.
I'll rest it there. I just would say that does work. If you want to talk about it further, you know where I stand, but it's I'll leave it at that. I'm one voice.
So I had a question about the branding. So from the minutes from last month, we had the budget for 2022 discussion, right? And I think my suggestion was to use it for stickers, which would really be, if they apply to cars, they're free advertising. If that were to go forward, which logo would they use? The Spark or the WB?
So with this tourism committee, I'd like to use the tourism branding.
And are the banners that are hung all over the town, is that tourism or is that not tourism?
That's the corporate branding.
And
Typically, there's a different set of banners that can be used at beachfront.
Yep. Yep.
So the beachfront as the key tourist area has traditionally had a different set of banners than the east-west and Main Street.
Yeah, so the banners that are up currently, we plan to use them as the winter banners throughout town. And yes, we can look at placing different banners throughout the community as well. But we'll be ordering more banners with updated branding. So I'm sure you all have noticed, like the old banners that were up, they were fairly dated. So we're going to be ordering all new sets.
okay, thank you. Does that bring us, is there anything else that we had on the agenda outside of that, Caitlin, that I am missing that we do?
No, I believe that brings us to the end. So we
Good.
just,
We do have some items for, already for our next meeting. For our next meeting, we've got formulation of terms of reference on the, for the beautification committee or task force, and website review. And do I also ask at this point if there's anything else that we need to put on the agenda, because the next meeting will be our last meeting formally. Okay, if we could take a look at our calendars for October. I don't think we want to leave it too late into October. How does October 4th look? Oh, Gary's away. What is it? It's too late. We're before election. Correct. So that's why I was thinking October 4th. No? Okay. Wendy? You're fine? Dan? Or, I'm sorry? October 4th or October 11th?
Final council date pre-election is October 20th. So what timing do you need back it up? What time do you need to get a report to council?
let me look here. Yeah, I would need it a week. So, yeah. And October 4th, the council chamber's booked, so we will need to meet at a different time.
Third? October 3? Does that work out better for everyone? Better? 2 weeks from today. Unfortunately, we got two things squeezing in on it. We've got timing for us to, does that work for you as far as putting together something that, oh, wow, perfect. Well, how did the 3rd work for everyone? I'm okay with that. How does that look for council? I mean, for council chambers here? 3rd. 3rd.
I'll be late if it's 11.
I'm good with whatever time on the 3rd. So if we,
I have 9:30 to 11:30, that's
okay, we'll do one to, would 12 o'clock be, or 1 o'clock?
So we can
That way
meet
we-
October 3rd
the-
at 12 o'clock?
Or, people want to eat, so is that, if we just make it 1 to 2,
Yeah.
1 to 3 o'clock?
Yeah,
I don't
that's
think it's
fine.
going to be as long. I think this will be
One's fine.
1 o'clock. This is a committee that believes in eating lunch.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to just clarify something just before we finish here.
Yes,
Am I looking at the corporate logo or the tourist logo?
that is the corporate logo.
Yeah.
Because the photographs are, it says municipal branding here. Okay with that? I like the corporate logo.
Yeah.
And then, if I can add, also in the agenda, I provided the branding guidelines for both tourism and municipal, so if you want to have a look through those, they're there. Yeah.
It doesn't look like our publications are using either logo, though. Oh. Okay.
Okay, so we have our next meeting scheduled for Monday, October 3 at 1 p.m. And where's my agenda? I think with that, we are allowed, I'm just wondering if there's anything else I need to ask for a motion. Okay, I guess I ask for a motion for dismissing. Okay. Celia? Gary, second? All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you for